most firms are unwilling to buy. So it's like trying to buy homes without being able to borrow anything. Prices come down, and I think that's the issue today. So I think we're still in an issue, or still at a point, because of the lack of credit, that values won't be very high. Yes.
Chris, I noticed on your company's website, you sort of actively invite intermediaries to sort of contact you guys about companies, but you also invite the entrepreneurs and CEOs directly. So if you own a company, are you better off going to you directly, or are you going to end up better off if you go to Houlihan Lokey or some other investment bank that's going to maybe auction them off or otherwise get in the middle and try and help them understand their value?
No, you go to us. You go to us first, and then we take it Reardon, Lewis, and Hayden.
I just wanted to get a rise out of you, Davis.
Davis has the right answer. Now, if they don't like Davis, then you come to us directly. but really, all we're doing is just starting a process. It's starting an introduction. And a lot of firms in our business, I think, are very closed-door oriented. They don't want to meet with people. We take a different approach. Because, if I look at my life and who I've had a chance to meet, where those random meetings have come from, and the results of those random meetings, we meet with anybody. Because at the end of the day, they themselves might not be right for us, but their next door neighbor might be, or their competitor might be. You're really only, the guys in this room, you are really only one connection away from almost anybody in the world. You don't realize it, but you're really only one connection away. And that's how relationships develop. That's how confidence is developed. And so, it's a constant quest to build not necessarily a network, but to put yourself out there so that you're approachable. And we think being approachable is a very valuable asset.
So what's the fastest you've ever gone from an initial approach or phone call to funding, and what's the longest it's ever taken you on a deal?
Fastest would be not to closing, but to saying we'll do it. I would say about 100 hours, 4 days. That company, when we invested, was $20 million. Today, it's about $2.5 billion. The longest was actually the cybersecurity company that I mentioned to you guys, and it took us 18 months. And the reason is because the seller was very unsophisticated, didn't understand the process that selling your business, didn't understand what entailed, and so it just took a long time to get that done. So anywhere from 100 hours to 18 months.
Thank you.
When you're evaluating a potential investment, does your firm, do you ever take kind of a macro view, like the emergence of middle class in China?
Yes.
Let's go, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you might that might be the starting point.
In fact, we do research along those ways, where we have a variety of macro themes today. If you just think about the aging of America, that's an easy one. What does that mean? I mean, you'll see reports today that people aren't going to live to 70 now, 75. I think that's the average age for a male. They're going to live to 90, and it's going to jump quickly. So what's the implication of that? What's the implication of that individual who saved as if they were going to pass away in their mid-70s, and now they have to survive until they're 90? What's the implication? So we believe macro trends like that is what drives our investment thesis. And also drives the risk that you have to perceive. For example, the biggest thing that we think is affecting the economy today is just the digitization of everything. If you think about the power of a BlackBerry, you probably all have a BlackBerry, what you can do with a BlackBerry today, who you can communicate with across the world in a matter of seconds, they can take the data, they can manipulate the data. The world is moving at a pace it has never seen before. In 1982, when I started in this business, the fastest computer in the world was a Cray computer. It was about the size of this room. It was in an air-conditioned environment. Everything was frozen in. I mean, literally at 250 negative Kelvin or some crazy number, and it had to work in that environment. Otherwise, it would just blow up. It would get too hot. And Cray, Seymour Cray, I was at a convention, he was talking, he said, in 20 years, the power of this Cray will be smaller or be half the size of this BlackBerry today. And he was exactly right. Today, your laptop, that little Intel processor, is much more powerful than the Cray was in 1982. Technology is not stopping. It's continuing to move. Everything we do is being affected by technology, and probably that is the biggest trend that we're focused on, both on the risk side and on the opportunity side. Think of the number of businesses that are now obsolete just 10 years ago were going gangbusters. We had a guy come into us and talk to us about buying the Yellow Pages. Now, the Yellow Pages had been a very successful business for many, many years. 50 years. It was the best way to advertise for the small firm. So we kind of thought about, this is about 10 years ago. Kind of thought about it, and, this is probably going to go by the wayside. So I went home and asked my son, who at the time was 10 years old, hey, Robbie, you know about the Yellow Pages? He goes, what's the Yellow Pages? I go, well, what if you want to find a restaurant or something? He goes, I just get on the computer and look. Most of where we are headed, your kids are already ahead of us. They're on it. They are so far ahead of us. You take a 10-year-old today has a better view of where the world's going than most of us in this room today, unfortunately. So we talk to them. We're talk to my kids like, hey, where are things going? They trying to get something out of it. They really have a good instinct as to where the world's going.
A quick question for you in terms of the overall economy, because you have seem like you have a pretty good pulse on it. So green technology is nothing new, even though it's a buzzword now.
Wrong. Green technology for years has been talked about.
That's what I mean. It's nothing new.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no.
All right. So my question to you, I'm glad that we're already in each other's heads. So
Bad place to be.
well,
Are you a lefty, Corey?
no, I was right-handed.
Just got sacked.
But no,
Blindside.
no, listen. So my thoughts are, we talked about the housing market slowing down, and if you think about blue-collar jobs, right, that most of us are more in the white-collar arena, but most of the country is in some sort of blue-collar job, right? You know, middle America.
It's changing.
And my question is, are we ever going to get to where there's a legitimate green-collar job out there, where a lot of these blue-collar jobs, for people who might not ever get a job again in the area that they are we going to be able to replace a lot of the lost blue-collar jobs with a legitimate green-collar sector of our economy, and therefore maybe pull it back from China, back from India, in terms of where we actually have our people working again, and we're not all taken care of.
You know, I think that's a fair comment. We've never really quite thought about the transition from blue collar to green collar, but we fully believe that the green movement has been around for a long time. That company that I mentioned went from 2 billion in sales, is basically in the environmental space. So it has been, environmental issues have been around for a long time. But recently, there's been more acceptance by the population, by our kids, because of technology, that green is really becoming an issue that is going to create a lot of jobs, it's going to create a huge industry. So it is one of our macro themes, and we've been watching it for probably 15 years. And I would say only in the last 3 years have we felt, and we could be totally wrong, that it really is one of the industries of the future. And much of it is due to technology. So I think you're right. I think there will be a transition of blue-collar jobs, especially in the housing, construction area. You know, they have green buildings. There's actually a term for
LEED. Certified.
LED. LED. You know, if you have a LEED building, one of our firms actually does that, designs LEED buildings. So we actually think it'll be huge. It has to be. We don't have a choice in it. I think the same with oil. I think we've finally gotten to the point where dependence on oil is just not acceptable. And you lived through the 70s, through the gas shortage, and you lived through the Iran crisis in the 82 time frame. There was always talk of it. But our sense is that it has really turned the corner this time.
Can I follow up on that? Do you think that the price of oil, for instance, you know, when we were all complaining that it was getting as high as it was, and as that gets higher and it becomes more of an issue, they focus more on green. The price of oil comes down a little bit, less attention to green, because oil's still easier and cheaper to make. So can't we just raise I know we can't just do it, but don't you think it would be easier if we kept the rates of oil as high and price of gas to force people to get to that area? Is that ever going to happen? Because if oil comes down further, why do I need to go to green? It's more expensive.
Well, okay, if you...
Reset.
This is just a guess. And I haven't never thought about this, so it probably has zero merit. But to force the gas to that level, it would probably be a governmental issue. The government would force it. So can you imagine being the politician that forced gas to be at that stage? You would have a pretty short career.
Right.
So my guess is it's not going to happen. There's still the supply